Hey, I'm Jason Odell, and this is the Sensor Plane Photography Podcast, where light and technology come together. Thanks for joining me today. And it is getting into the middle of September, and that means we start to think about shooting fall colors. Fall time is a wonderful time of year to go out. Temperatures are nicer, the colors can be beautiful. And so I want to talk a little bit about my philosophies towards shooting fall colors. I live in Colorado, we get some good ones here. But depending on what part of the country you're in, you might be planning on doing some shooting of your own or taking a trip to see some fall colors. Uh, Fall colors are just a great topic. I love shooting them. And I think sometimes it's easy, for me at least, to really just get absorbed in shooting fall foliage. I just love doing it. It's one of my favorite things to do if the colors are good. But there's a couple of things I want to talk about and some tips and tricks. And let's start with the kinds of conditions you want to look for, the kinds of equipment you want to use, and some accessories. I'll talk about all of those things today. When you go out shooting fall colors, no matter where you are, the best time to shoot is to get sort of what you want is like partially cloudy skies or maybe even slightly overcast skies. And I've talked a little bit about overcast conditions in the past. Obviously, they don't make the sky look good. But what you want for fall foliage is to really make those colors pop. We want the vibrant oranges, yellows, reds, those colors. And depending on where you are and what kind of scenery you have, you can work with the conditions. Now, bright sun is probably the worst condition you can have, although, of course, you can still shoot in it. The reason is that the contrast just gets so intense that you don't really get the subtleties of the color. But if you can work if you're in a sunny day, if you can find some open shade, if you can go into the trees, into the grove of whatever kind of trees there might be, and work on different kinds of shooting there, and avoid the harsh direct sunlight, that can work for you. Of course, if you can get a partly cloudy or overcast day, that's going to be even better. I also want to talk a little bit about your approach to shooting fall colors because I think sometimes people get caught up in just trying to get the wide shot. I'm going to use my super wide lens and there's just going to be this wonderful valley of color. And if you've got the right conditions for that, hey, there's nothing better than that. It's a wonderful shot. So your wide to standard zoom lens are going to be perfect. But what about conditions, again, where you don't necessarily have the most optimal scenery or you've got a little bit of sunlight you're trying to deal with? That's where I like to switch to a longer focal length lens. Maybe my 70 to 200, maybe a 105 macro lens, and start getting in closer and looking for shapes and forms and structure within details within the scene. And I think it's really fun to do. And oftentimes we get to a location, we see it, we look at it, you take your camera, you get your shots, you set up your tripod, whatever, and you're good to go. But what I find with any scene, but especially with fall colors, is to be able to spend some time, 10, 15 minutes, maybe even half an hour to an hour, really getting in the scene and looking for things through your viewfinder. Explore through that little window in your camera and try different focal lengths because not everything is going to be a wide shot. Not everything is going to be that grandiose landscape shot that you can get. So colors, patterns, and form are all wonderful things to look for when you're shooting fall colors. There's also some other techniques you can do depending on the equipment that you have and, again, the conditions. Fall colors make wonderful abstract shots. Aspen trunks, particularly the white trunks and the color. I know photographers who like to do things with zooming the lens while shooting. Now, you can zoom the lens or deliberately move the camera or blur the camera or even apply blur effects in your post-processing software such as Photoshop. There's some really cool motion blur effects in Photoshop, also in Analog Effects Pro 2 from Nik software, the Google collection there. So you can add some stuff even if you weren't able to shoot it. But if you want to shoot that in the field and get the blurred shots or multiple exposures, especially the blurred shots or the zooming, you're going to want to add some filtration. And filters are one accessory that's extremely important when shooting fall colors. So I want to talk a little bit more in detail about the kinds of filters that I use in photographing foliage and fall landscapes. The first and most important filter that you should have is this one right here, a circular polarizing filter. This filter is incredibly important. It adds contrast to the sky and clouds, but more importantly, and most importantly with fall colors, is that this polarizing filter removes the glare from leaves. Now leaves, in my old days as a biologist, I could have taught you about leaves, how they have a waxy layer on top of them. That waxy layer is very reflective, and it reflects back polarized light. By using a polarizer and turning it to adjust it, while looking through the viewfinder, you can eliminate that glare from the leaves. That is not something that you can do in any form of post-processing, at least that I'm aware of. Never been able to do that. So you need to have a polarizing filter. Now, most polarizing filters these days will be circular polarizers. There's also something called a linear polarizer. You don't find those as frequently. Circular polarizers are what you want because they will not interfere with the performance of the autofocus system on your camera. Whereas a linear polarizing filter might do that. So if you've got a really old polarizer lying around in your junk drawer somewhere, maybe something that your grandfather had lying around, you might want to avoid that and get a good quality polarizing filter. The quality of your polarizing filter is one where I wouldn't want to skimp on it. This is a Nikon circular polarizer. I like it a lot because it's a slim design. It doesn't need to fit on a Nikon lens. It's got a slim design, so it's going to minimize any vignetting, corner shading, even at wide angle lenses. And I can still attach another filter or a locking lens cap onto the front of this filter. Now, you may have lenses of different sizes. And what do you do in that particular case? So option number one is to buy polarizing filters that fit on all your lenses, depending on what kind of lenses that you use the most. Another option that you could use would be to get another accessory, and that's what's called a step ring. This is a B+W step ring. And what this ring allows you to do, it's got a set of threads on the inside, on the outside rim here, and then another one on the inside, and it lets you use a larger filter on a smaller lens, and they come in lots of different flavors. Now when you start using these step-up rings, again, you have to be concerned with looking in your viewfinder to see if you're going to get any corner vignetting, where if you're using a wide-angle lens, you may actually see the edge of this filter in the frame, and if that's the case, you'll need to zoom in a little bit tighter with your scene. The other thing about these step rings is that you're going to be putting a filter on your camera lens that's larger than the lens itself, so you're not going to be able to use your lens hood as easily with one of these. But for a lot of cases, you'll be just fine. It is certainly cheaper than buying polarizing filters for all of your different lenses. Okay, so a polarizer is really important. It's one of those critical accessories. There are other accessories you might want to consider as well, and this sort of depends on the situation that you're in and the scene you're in. One accessory that can come in handy for landscape photography is a graduated neutral density filter. This is a Singh-Ray graduated neutral density filter. I'm not sure if you can see that here. I'll try to hold it up. It has a gradient. It's clear at the bottom. It's dark at the top. Now this is a 4 by 6 inch size filter, so it's 6 inches by 4 inches. They come in different sizes and stuff. If you're going to use one of these filters, the 4 by 6 version is probably the easiest to use, because not only can you put it in front of your camera, but you can also hand hold it easily, whereas the smaller filter sizes sometimes get a little bit tricky to do that. But with any rectangular filter, you need to attach it to your lens, and that's where this accessory comes in. This is what's called the Lee Foundation Kit, and it's a ring. It's a filter adapter. It has some slots in it, And what you do is you take your filter and you just slide it into the slot. And what's nice about this is that you can then rotate this on the lens. You can move the filter up and down, and the whole thing sits in front of your camera. You can mount this on any lens by using an adapter ring. So here's an adapter ring. This is a 67mm one, but I also have them in other sizes. So you screw this onto your lens, and then the adapter ring simply fits into the foundation holder. So the Lee holder is for 4x6. You'll find it, do a search for Lee Foundations Kit, and it can hold any 4x6 or 4x4 square filter. You can just adjust these. Okay, we use these graduated neutral density filters to darken part of the scene while keeping it bright in another part. So the most common use is you would darken a sky while keeping a shadowy or shaded foreground bright. So we put the clear part on the foreground. But you can use them however. The downside again with these is that they're a little bit big, a little bit cumbersome, and depending on your lens, you may have a tricky time adjusting them, so they take a little practice to use. You also won't be able to use your lens hood when you use your rectangular filter holder. It obviously is larger than that. But you can stack multiple filters in here, and these are great to use. Lastly, and this for a particular kind of shooting, and it could be fall colors, it could be anything really, is when you're photographing moving water, and fall foliage on a stream is a wonderful subject to shoot this time of year. And a lot of times what you'll want to do is blur that water. So you need to use some kind of solid neutral density filter, and you'll also want to have a polarizer. Well, what I like to use, as long as the conditions aren't too bright, is the Singh-Ray Vari-N-Duo variable neutral density filter. This combines a polarizing filter, so I don't need to add a second piece of glass onto my lens, with a variable neutral density filter. And what you can see here is that this filter, as I turn the ring, will darken. It gets very dark. It gets to about 7 or 8 stops of darkness. And so that will allow you to use a slow shutter speed and blur that water as it moves down the stream, and you get these wonderful pictures. Now, I don't recommend using this filter for wide scenes. It's very thick, so wide-angle lenses, it's going to vignette. And if you crank it down too much, you're going to start to see some funny polarization artifacts in your skies and possibly in water. So this filter is fantastic, but it's really best for sort of shady conditions on a stream where you don't have a sky, and you can work with focal lengths a little bit long, about 28 millimeters or longer if you're on full frame. And if you're on APS-C, we're talking 18, 19 millimeter focal length. Otherwise, you're going to see this filter vignette in the corners. So these are some of the filters that I use. Again, recapping, we've got a polarizer, we've got a graduated neutral density in our Lee Foundations kit, and we've got the Singh-Ray Vari-N-Duo, the variable neutral density with polarizer that I really like to use. How do you carry all this stuff? Because these kind of get cumbersome. You stick them in your bag. Well, lately I have been using this guy to carry my filter equipment. This is a bag made from Mind Shift Gear. They're a sister company to Think Tank Photo, who makes a lot of camera bags, many of which I use. And this is called the Filter Hive. And this little bag, it's not all that small, but it's designed to hold 4x6 filters. And it's got nice little soft-sided slots in here where you can put all your different filters. So I've got my 4x6 filter. Here's my Singh-Ray 10-stop more slow filter I put in here. All these nice little slots, you can see these. And then in the front there's some divided slots which will fit your circular filter, so I can put my 77 millimeter filter in there. I can put my Vari-N-D in there. And this entire thing comes out. It velcros out. So if you want to just carry this maybe in a camera bag, if you've got space, you've got this little expandable accordion wallet here that you can use. And it's got a zippered pouch. And another feature I like about this particular bag is that it's got, in addition to a belt loop, so I can put it on a belt right here, but it's also got this handy little strap that undoes, clips, and you can just attach it to your tripod. And so that's how I like to use this. I just hang it on my tripod. I just attach it to the tripod. I have all my filters, and I can even usually tuck this Lee Foundation Kit filter holder in the same bag, and it goes with me. It's a little bit large, so it's not the kind of thing that you're going to just casually tuck into a camera bag, but a lot of times I find that it's extremely useful, and it's very well padded and well constructed, and will safely transport your filters. Okay, well that brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you're excited about shooting fall foliage this year. Don't forget to check out all the information at luminescentphoto.com, which is where you'll find my photography blog on the web. Also, if you're looking to buy some of these accessories, site sponsor B&H Photo, there's a link there that will help support the website. So go ahead and check it all out, and I will see you next time on the Sensor Plane Photography Podcast. Thanks a bunch.